So, hey guys, today I want to begin the long promised series about deep hooks, those inner, childhood formed anchors that shape our reactions throughout life. And of course, I need to say right away that for every person, these deep hooks are absolutely individual. Each of us has our own inner roots, our own childhood situations, our own emotional injuries. But even though the traumas differ, their consequences often look similar. And through these consequences, through the feelings we experience as adults, we can trace back the cause and understand what exactly formed inside us. And today I want to start with one of the deepest hooks of all, the hook of envy. Why look at envy differently? And I want to look at envy not from the position of someone who envies is bad or someone who envies is evil, but from the deeper perspective of the root causes. Because in reality, most people who feel envy are not malicious at all. They're not bad people. If we don't talk about severe personality disorders, then envy usually comes from something else, from deep inner dissatisfaction with life, from the sense that I forbid myself to live better, to be better, to become the person I truly want to be. The hidden pain behind envy, and this creates a deep internal pain, a pain a person cannot express outwardly, but it still lives inside, and it comes out as envy, and sometimes even aggression toward people who have more than they do. Because envy grows from an aggressive internal suppression of one's own desires. I want something, but I can't reach it. I wish I could live differently, but I don't let myself, because I don't let myself. I hurt inside. And that pain doesn't come out as tears. It comes out as an envy and irritation toward those who manage to achieve what I want, where the aggression actually goes. And the interesting thing is, this aggression is not really toward others. It is directed toward myself. The anger that lives inside gets thrown outward only because a person can't handle the fact that he is angry at himself. So envy becomes the external layer, and beneath it is the pain of I can't allow myself the life I want. Now that we've touched the surface, let's go deeper into what envy really reveals about a person. What envy actually is. So let's start. Envy is one of the most common and at the same time emotionally difficult feelings. It appears when we compare ourselves to others and feel that someone else has achieved more has more success, more wealth, more recognition, more opportunities, and all of this feels somehow unavailable to us. And even if a person doesn't fully realize it, deep inside it feels like I can't reach that. I can't stretch that far. And if we look just a bit deeper, we can see it very clearly. Envy is the feeling of I cannot reach it. So envy, at its core, is the feeling that something is out of my reach. And that feeling can trigger extremely strong inner reactions. It can reveal limitations that block a person from moving toward what he wants. And those limitations don't just prevent joy, they prevent growth as well. They block development because the trigger keeps whispering you can't. It's not for you. Why envy and intention cannot coexist? Back on my intention course I already said this envy and intention do not live together. If a person is full of envy, it is almost impossible for them to use intention to consciously create their reality. Because intention works only when inside I feel everything is available to me. I can reach any point I choose. I can build the life I want. So when I launch an intention for a good job, for a loving relationship, for a home, for some project, the first inner rule is I am someone who can actually have this. I am someone who can stand in that future point B and say, yes, this is my life. Envy as the inner message, I can't have it. But when a person carries envy inside, the message is the opposite, I cannot get what I want. Envy always whispers about inaccessibility, about distance, about separation others can, I can't. And that's why for a person filled with envy, it is very hard to use intention in a clean way. Those two states are almost like opposites. To hold an intention, I have to believe that I can receive, but envy constantly insists I can't receive, and that's why it hurts to see others who can. White envy and black envy. And now, a small but important thing. In reality, there is no true split into black envy and white envy. People like to say, okay, I don't envy in a bad way, I envy in a good way, in a white way, but envy is still envy. It still points to the same inner problem. I believe this is not available to me. Yes, there is a difference in how it looks. Black envy is when a person wants to hurt those who have what he doesn't. He feels that they are guilty of his pain, as if their success somehow stole something from him. White envy is softer. There the person can genuinely say, I'm really happy for you, I'm glad you succeeded, but I also envy you. There's no open hatred, no wish to destroy, but inside the same phrase sounds, I can't do that. It's not for me. Narcissism and black envy. Black envy is especially typical for people with narcissistic personality structure. A narcissist has very strong black envy. That's why narcissists try to destroy those who have what they themselves can't reach. Status, talent, love, recognition, success. Inside, a narcissist believes, I don't deserve it. It belongs to me. But if we look deeper, we see something fragile at the core of narcissism. There is a very vulnerable self-esteem. Almost a zero covered by a grandiose mask. I am perfect. I'm the best. Any success of another person breaks this illusion of perfection against the wall of reality. Look, there are people better than you. And when that illusion cracks, the narcissist's black envy erupts as aggression toward those who dared to be successful instead of him. Envy outside narcissism. But of course, black envy is not found only in narcissists. It can appear in anyone who has very fragile self-esteem, many inner restrictions, and a strong sense that I'm not allowed. This person wants a lot, but his own inner censors say no all the time. And when he sees others doing freely what he forbids himself, envy arises even if he doesn't fully notice it. Often it lives unconsciously but comes out as irritation. Judgment, aggressive comments. Think of the classic example, older ladies on a bench who loudly condemn young women for living freely, for enjoying life, their bodies, their feelings. On the surface it looks like moral judgment, but behind it very often stands a huge layer of envy. They allow themselves what I never allowed myself. They are free where I was forbidden. White envy again, I'm happy for you, but I can't. Let's come back to white envy for a moment. A non-aggressive, fairly healthy person may say something like, wow, I'm so happy for you that you had such an amazing trip. Honestly, I envy you in a good way. And he really does feel joy for the other person. But at the same time, inside there is that quiet phrase, I can't do the same. It's not available to me. He doesn't think, how can I create something similar for myself? He thinks, why is it available for them and not for me? And that is the essence of envy, not just, I want this too, but I want it and I believe I can't have it. Transforming envy into inspiration. The key point here is this, it doesn't matter if envy is black or white. It still signals an inner restriction. It still says I want what others have, but I don't allow it for myself. And this restriction kills inspiration. On my free course Fundament of New Thinking, I talk about one important shift. When you feel envy, you can either want to take away from the other what they have, or you can say, I want to create something similar in my own way, in my own style, in a way that fits me. For example, your friend goes on a beautiful trip and tells you how amazing it was. Envy says, why can they do this and I can't? Healthy thinking says, wow, I also want to travel. Where would I like to go? How can I organize something like that for myself? This is the inner turning point from envy to inspiration. Physical sensations of envy. Envy often shows itself very clearly in the body. You may notice tension in the body, tightness in the chest or stomach, heaviness or pressure in the solar plexus area, a kind of inner heat, burning, itching from inside, faster heartbeat, shallow breathing, tension in the jaw, mouth, neck or forehead. These physical reactions are not random. They are signals, markers of strong emotional processes. If you begin to track them, you can see exactly which moments trigger you the most, which situations, which phrases, which words cause the strongest electric shock inside. A sharp irritation, a sting, a wave of bitterness. Wherever this appears, there is usually a deep hook underneath. Finding your own triggers, so watch your reactions. Maybe you feel a sudden heaviness or sting every time a friend talks about their success, their promotion, their new apartment, their relationship. Maybe every time you hear such stories you feel as if someone hit you emotionally. This is not just a reaction. This is a sign that inside you a whole storm rises. Sometimes envy does not come out directly and openly. Sometimes it is forbidden. A person may have an inner rule, envy is a bad feeling. If I envy, I am a bad person. So I must not envy. But the emotion doesn't disappear, it just changes its mask. And very often envy becomes a secondary feeling, covered by something else on the surface. Example, envy masked as devaluation. Let's take a simple example. Your acquaintance takes a big loan and buys a car. They take responsibility, sign the contract, and drive away in a nice new vehicle. You, in this situation, actually want the same. You would like to have a car of that level. Maybe you could even afford it if you looked at your finances honestly, but inside you live many social stereotypes and bans. You must not take loans, it's dangerous, it's irresponsible, so you don't allow yourself what you secretly want. And what happens then? You feel envy, but you are not allowed to admit it. You think, no, no, envy is bad. I'm not that kind of person. But the inner aggression still wants to go somewhere, and so it comes out as devaluation. You start saying, what an idiot! Why did he buy that car? Why did he take a loan? He'll drown in debt. Those repairs will eat him alive. I would never do something so stupid. Outwardly it sounds like rational criticism. In reality it's envy in disguise, because deep inside you would love to do something similar. But you don't allow yourself. What to do when you notice this? So if you see this pattern in yourself, if you notice that you dismiss, devalue, or mock other people's steps and purchases, pause and ask, what if this is not about them at all? What if this is my envy, my unfulfilled desire, my own inner ban? Because again, I'm not talking here about truly destructive behavior or obviously harmful things. I'm talking about those moments where the other person is simply doing something they want and I could do something similar in my own way, but I don't allow myself. There, right there, envy usually lives. Envy is not proof that you're bad. The most important shift is this: feeling envy does not make you a bad person. Envy is not proof that you are evil or broken. Envy is a symptom. It shows that inside you there are certain beliefs and inner bands that limit your life. It shows where you don't let yourself be happier, freer, braver, and it invites you not to hate yourself for this, but to ask her, what exactly am I not allowing myself? And why? Tracking the physical and emotional signals of envy. So again, pay attention to your body. Your reactions are clues. Every time you feel a sudden sting, a wave of irritation, a heaviness in your chest or stomach, a tightening in your jaw, or a hot rush inside, these sensations show you exactly where the deep hook sits. Follow them, observe them, because through these reactions you can trace the path to the real, hidden belief that creates the feeling of envy. And notice what situations trigger you most: success stories, people buying something, someone announcing plans, certain words or phrases. These are not random. They point to your unprocessed inner limits. Envy can be a hidden, forbidden emotion, and sometimes you won't show envy openly. Maybe you were taught that envy is shameful, that good people don't envy, that envy means you're bad, so your mind simply hides it from you. Envy then becomes a secondary emotion, covered by something else. On the surface, you may say, I'm not envious at all, but inside there is a storm. And instead of envy, another feeling appears, usually irritation, sadness, anger, or emotional numbness. This is also a signal that a deep hook is there. A practical example: when someone buys something you can't allow yourself. Let's take a relatable example. Someone you know buys a car, they take a loan, they take responsibility, and they make a step towards something they want. Inside you want the same. But for you there are invisible bans, social rules, fear of debt, a belief that I must not or I don't deserve it, and instead of admitting I also want this, envy appears. But you don't allow yourself to feel envy because you believe envy is bad. So the emotion has to find another way out. Envy turns into judgment, and the way out very often becomes judgment. Instead of saying, I wish I could do the same, you say, he's stupid, why did he take that loan? What a reckless choice. I would never do that. He will regret it. This is envy in a mask. It's a defense mechanism that protects you from facing your own pain, the pain of I want but can't. Judgment becomes a psychological shield to avoid seeing your own unmet desires, when the real reason is psychological, not financial. And very often it's not even about money. A person may be financially able to do the same thing, but psychologically he is blocked. He has inner stereotypes like, you must not take risks, a good person doesn't spend on themselves, you have to suffer first, you must earn happiness the hard way. So while real reasons may look material, the truth is the barrier is inside, in the form of a belief, a family program, a childhood ban, and these bans feed envy. When envy can't come out, devaluation replaces it. So when a person is not allowed to feel envy directly, envy goes underground and surfaces as mocking, diminishing criticism, sarcasm, aggressive or rational comments that actually hide bitterness. It looks like a moral opinion or like care or like logic, but underneath is the quiet message: I want this too, but I am not allowed to want it. And this forbidden desire hurts. the cycle of aggression and self-deception. So what happens? The person attacks the other's achievement not because it is wrong, but because inside he feels powerless to allow himself something similar. His aggression is not actually toward the other, it is toward himself, toward his own limits, toward his own bands. It is self-aggression projected outward. And that's why it feels so unfair and painful. Why envy hides deeper suffering? If you see this in yourself, don't judge yourself. Envy is a sign of suffering, a sign of forced limitations, a sign of some childhood band still controlling your life. Behind every case of envy, there is always a blocked desire and a deep inner belief, I cannot, I am not allowed, this is not for people like me. Your task is not to shame yourself, but to explore this place with honesty. What to ask yourself when envy appears? When you feel envy or judgment or irritation, ask yourself, what exactly am I not allowing myself? Not why is he allowed, not why does she have this, but what stops me from creating something similar in my own way? And avoid listing material excuses first. Go straight to the psychological reasons. What do I forbid myself? What belief stops me? What is the inner voice saying no? Right there, you will find the hook. When you criticize others, check if you're masking envy. So if you notice moments where you suddenly begin to criticize someone else's choice, their purchase, their success, their lifestyle, and your criticism doesn't actually make sense or isn't even about something harmful, or pause. Ask yourself, is this really about them? Or is this about something I don't allow myself? Because very often this is envy in its masked form. And the more logical your criticism sounds on the surface, the more likely it hides a forbidden desire underneath, and manipulating others instead of owning your feelings. Sometimes this disguised envy comes out in a different way, through manipulation. Instead of allowing yourself, your feelings, and your desires, you begin to manipulate others. You shouldn't do that. You're wrong. It's irresponsible. You regret it. Why are you acting like that? This is not wisdom, and not care. This is an attempt to force the other person to live by your limits. Because if they also limit themselves, your own limitation hurts less. This is how envy tries to protect itself from pain, seeing envy as an inner block, not a moral failure. The important understanding here is envy is not a moral failure, it's a sign of an inner block. When you feel envy, the emotion is simply saying, there is something inside me I want, but believe I cannot have, and this belief can be removed. Envy is a pointer, a signal, a direction where inner healing is needed. It's not something you should shame yourself for. Ask the deeper question, what stops me, not what others have. So when envy rises, don't ask you, why does he have this? Why does she live like that? Why not me? Ask what inner belief stops me from doing something similar, not external reasons, not money, not circumstances. Go deeper. What inner rule says I'm not allowed? What belief says I can't? Where did this ban come from? This is the only way to dissolve the hook. A video with techniques that help work through deep blocks. In the video, open the secrets of your mind. The power of the subconscious. I talk about tools that help with exactly this kind of work. I explain free writings of weight and to reach subconscious material. Techniques that help reconnect with personal boundaries, to visualization and body-mind sensing through imagery, ways to track inner blocks through reactions. These techniques help with both self-diagnosis and deep self-support. They show you where the hook is and how to begin loosening it, and techniques for internal freedom. These techniques teach you how to observe your own reactions, not intellectually but through your body and your emotional shifts. They show you how to catch the moment when a childhood belief suddenly activates and pulls you back into old patterns, and they help you to gently unwind that reaction, to return clarity and to replace the old belief with a healthier one. This is how work with envy's deep roots begins, a new method for breaking addictions. And then I talk about something else, a method I created for breaking addictions. This method is universal. It came to me intuitively through very deep inner work. And it works not only for smoking, but for alcohol, food addiction, and other compulsive behaviors. It helps return your own willpower, because addiction actually steals will from a person. This method returns it back, and I know it works because I quit smoking with it myself 5 years ago and never returned. A practical, accessible course. The course is intentionally structured so anyone can use it, even people far from spirituality. It's based on psychology, physiology, nutrition, stabilizing emotional habits, practical steps to avoid relapse. It's designed It's designed so you can share it with relatives who have no interest in esoteric topics but need real help. And it's priced exactly at what a smoker spends monthly. So the first month already pays back through saved health. A note and free first lesson. The first video of the course is free to watch. Anyone can access it without commitment, just to see if this method resonates and feels right. The link is available under the video. And then we return to our main topic, the deep hooks behind envy, social stereotypes that create envy. Now, let's go deeper into one of the biggest roots of envy, social stereotypes. These are not just ideas that float around in society. These are the rules that were pressed into us since childhood by parents, teachers, relatives, and the environment we grew up in. Stereotypes like, you must lie like this, you must want what everyone wants, you must follow the standard plan, and these rules become inner prisons. They dictate how we should live, what we should own, how we should behave, what we should achieve, and when our real desires don't match these rules, envy appears. Because we are living someone else's script instead of our own life. Classic stereotype had the standard success package. One of the strongest stereotypes sounds like this. A real man must build a house, plant a tree, and raise a son, or a successful person must have a diploma, a stable job, a car, an apartment, a family, and savings. Society presents it as the only correct path. But life is much more diverse than this template. These standard success packages push people into goals they don't even want. And when someone else achieves those things faster, easier, or in a different way, envy appears. Not because we truly want it, but because we were told we must want it. Social pressure around family and relationships. Another powerful form of pressure. If you're 28 and still not married, something is wrong with you. If you don't have kids by 30, you failed. If you're not settled yet, you're immature. This pressure does enormous harm. Some people are not ready yet. Some haven't met the right person, someone to travel, to build a career, to explore life first. But society pushes its clock onto every individual. And under that pressure, many people enter relationships they did not truly choose. Later, when they see someone else living freely and building life intentionally, envy appears. He lives how I always wanted, but I forced myself into the template. Examples from real life how pressure distorts choices. I've seen this many times. People who marry only because the family pushed them, have children, it's Timecodes, choose careers because parents demanded it, follow someone else's plan instead of their own path. And then the years later, they look at others, people who chose freely, people who built life intentionally. And envy rises. I wanted that life, but I didn't allow myself. Envy then becomes a symptom of grief, grief for a life they never permitted themselves to live. Pressure on young adults. People forget that at 18 to 20 years old Zio, a person is barely awakening as an independent being. Most at that age are still influenced by parents' opinions and are just beginning to figure out who they are. They haven't lived for themselves yet, haven't tasted real independence, haven't discovered their own desires, but society demands hurry, marry, have children, settle down. This crushes a young person's natural development. And then envy rises toward those who did give themselves time to grow naturally. Pressure on men and women alike. For women, if you don't have kids by 30, you're behind. For men, if you haven't built a career by 30, you're a loser. These stereotypes damage everyone because they punish people for simply being on their own timeline. And when someone else lives according to their own rhythm, not forced, not rushed, and thrives, those who lived under pressure feel envy. Not because they are bad, but because they surrendered their own freedom. When people follow stereotypes instead of themselves. So what happens? A person who followed the stereotype and built a correct life, house, kids, marriage, job, looks at others who live differently traveling, building careers, creating businesses, exploring life, and the inner voice says I wanted that too. But I rushed into the social template. This becomes envy, not of material things, but of freedom they once had and gave away. Family is not bad, but it must be chosen freely. And here it's important to say something clearly. Family is not bad. Relationships are not bad. Children are not bad. They are beautiful when they come from a free choice. But when society rushes people into these steps before they're ready, they lose connection to themselves. And then they envy others not because those others have something better, but because those others follow their own path. It's envy of authenticity, the gap between childhood and adulthood, and how pressure destroys it. At around 18, a person only begins to step out of childhood. They are still shaped by their family's worldview, still discovering their own preferences, still learning how to live independently. Between 18 and the mid-20s there should be a natural period of exploration, a time to understand who am I, what do I want, how do I want to live, what makes me feel alive. But many young people are not given this time. Barely stepping out of the parents' shadow, society already demands, now create your own family, now be responsible. Now follow the same pattern. This abrupt jump from one closed world directly into another kills personal development, and later, envy appears toward those who were allowed to find themselves. When freedom arrives and is taken away immediately, imagine the situation. A young person finally gets their first taste of freedom. They move out, they breathe, they start thinking about their own life, they begin to understand what they enjoy, what they dream of, what they want to explore. And suddenly pressure arrives from everywhere. Enough freedom. Stop exploring. Settle down. Move into the template now. And so freedom ends almost as soon as it begins. This leaves a deep wound, the feeling of a stolen life. And where wounds exist, envy grows. Family obligations and losing personal identity. Even when someone chooses family happily, the reality is once you have children, life does change, priorities change, schedules change, your time is no longer fully yours. This is not bad, but it must be chosen consciously. When it is forced or rushed, a person feels, I didn't even get to understand myself before I had to live for others. And then they look at someone traveling with ease, someone building a personal dream, someone exploring the world before settling down, and they feel envy. Not because his family is bad, but because their own transition into it was not free. Admiring those who keep freedom with children, there is admiration toward parents who still keep freedom alive. People who travel with kids, live vibrant lives, remain themselves and keep exploring the world. These people show a different way to live, that family doesn't have to mean loss of self. But for many, family life became a rigid responsibility picked too early, and when they see others living boldly, independently, creatively, envy appears. Envy toward freedom, toward authenticity, toward self-connection. When parents push too early, and often it's the family that pushes hardest. When will you give us grandchildren? When will you settle down? You're too old to be free. This pressure forces people into decisions that are not aligned with their inner timing. And then when someone else lives by their own rhythm, envy rises. They got to choose their life. I didn't. Social pressure about education and career. Social stereotypes don't stop at relationships. They enter career too. Don't study what you want. It's useless. Choose a serious profession. Follow the path of your father. Forget your dreams. They won't feed you. Many people are pushed into careers that were never meant for them. Some finish degrees in fields they hate. Some work decades in jobs that suffocate them. And then they see others living by passion, by creativity, by freedom, and envy appears. Again, not because others have something fancy, but because others follow their real nature of forced careers and suppressed desires. I've heard it many times. Parents choosing college instead of the child. Parents saying what you want is nonsense. Your passion is stupid. Go study something practical. And the child obeys the pressure. Years later, the person looks back and realizes I didn't live my path. I lived theirs. And that realization hurts deeply. And where there is deep hurt, envy grows, especially toward those who dared to follow their true calling. After finishing the wrong path, the inner conflict. Some people, after finishing the wrong degree, don't even enter the profession. They start over from zero. Others enter it and suffer for years, feeling trapped, unfulfilled, empty. Then they look at friends who built lives aligned with their soul and envy rises. Why did I follow the rules instead of myself? It's not envy of success, it's envy of alignment. Envy reveals unprocessed childhood programming, so envy becomes a mirror. It shows where old programming still rules your life, where parents' voices still speak inside you, where childhood bands still dictate your actions. Envy does not mean you are bad, it means your true self is trying to wake up and is angry that it was suppressed. The stereotype success of others means my failure. One of the most destructive stereotypes is, if someone else succeeds, it means I failed. This belief destroys inner peace and makes a person constantly compare themselves to everyone around them. It's rooted in childhood. where parents or teachers compared you to other kids. Look how good he, why can't you be like him? This creates a lifelong hook. Someone else's success reduces my value. And when that belief gets triggered, envy erupts. He stereotype, I must have as much as others. Another painful belief that fuels envy is, I must have exactly what others have. This comes from childhood pressure to fit into a template, to be the same as everyone else, to not stand out, to not disappoint expectations. So a person grows up thinking, if others have something, I must have it too. If I don't, I am behind. This belief kills individuality and blocks joy, because instead of living your own life, you live a checklist someone invented. And when others reach this checklist and you don't, envy awakens. The illusion of material or social equality. This stereotype continues. Everyone must have equal status, equal possessions, equal achievements. But life doesn't work that way. People are different. Paths are different. Timing is different. When a person tries to chase a fictional idea of equality, they run after goals that don't even belong to them. And when someone else naturally achieves what this person is forcing, envy emerges. But the root is simple. You're not living your life. You're running someone else's race. When others become symbols of freedom, and envy turns into aggression. When a person lives inside a rigid template, he eventually sees others who refuse those rules, others who live authentically, who follow their desires, who break social expectations, who choose freedom over fear. And that hurts deeply because these free people represent the life he secretly wanted. Envy arises, but it may turn into anger. You live wrong. You behave wrong. You break the rules. But in reality, this anger is pain. I wasn't allowed to live like you. So now I resent you for having the courage I didn't have. Idealizing other people's lives. Another toxic belief is everyone else has it easier than me. This is a complete distortion, a false worldview rooted in inner wounds. People with this belief ignore their own achievements and exaggerate the successes of others. They look up and see only better. They look within and see only worse. Envy blooms on this kind of soil. When envy blinds you to reality, often the people we envy are the ones who might be envying us. You may admire someone's lifestyle, so someone's choices, someone's success, while they look at you and wish they had your strengths, your stability, your freedom, your personality. Envy hides this truth. It creates the illusion that your life is always worse and everyone else's is always better. But that illusion is a wound, not a fact. Childhood roots when no one praised you. A deep reason for envy is the absence of praise and emotional validation in childhood. When a child grows up never hearing, you did great, I'm proud of you, you're capable, you achieved something amazing, they learn to ignore their own victories. In adulthood, they simply cannot see their progress, and so they imagine that others always achieve more, that their successes are insignificant, and again envy rises. The antidote, learning to notice your own victories, the achievement diary, a powerful healing tool. A practical technique to heal this wound is keeping a daily diary of your achievements. Write down everything. I cleaned the kitchen. I am a hero. I completed a task. Good job. I rested properly. I cared for myself. I called someone important. I honored a connection. I cooked. I nurtured my home. Big or small, it all matters. This teaches your inner world. I do accomplish things. I am valuable. My life has meaning. With time, envy weakens because self-worth grows. You already do more than you think. You could easily skip tasks. You could easily procrastinate. You could easily neglect your needs. But you don't. You show up. You try. You choose effort over avoidance. This must be honored. By acknowledging each thing you do, you rebuild the broken inner link. I matter. My actions matter. My effort is enough, and envy begins to dissolve. Celebrating rest is also an achievement. Even simple rest counts as an accomplishment. Taking a bath, watching a relaxing show, letting yourself breathe, giving yourself warmth. These things are not laziness, they are self-care. When you record them as positive achievements, you teach your psyche that your worth is not tied only to productivity. And once worth becomes internal, envy loses its fuel, rebuilding the inner sense of I do enough. As you continue this daily practice, you start seeing something important. You actually do a lot, much more than you ever noticed. Everything you accomplish, from the smallest task to the biggest decisions, becomes visible, and the moment you begin to acknowledge it, the constant inner pressure to do more begins to fade. Envy weakens too, because now your focus shifts from what others have to what you already do and how much value it brings to your life. The myth of happiness comes from owning things. Another powerful stereotype that fuels envy is the belief that happiness equals having certain things, certain status, certain symbols of success. This belief is a trap. It makes a person think if I don't have what society considers success, I cannot be happy. But this is false. True joy is born from inner alignment, from moral satisfaction, from being at peace with yourself, from living your own path, not someone else's checklist. People who idealize material achievements often feel empty inside, even when they obtain everything they thought would make them happy. Why? Because without inner healing, material comfort gives only momentary relief, and envy grows even stronger when the expected happiness doesn't arrive. Rich people must be happy, a dangerous illusion. Many assume that those who have more are always happier, but you'd be surprised how often wealthy people struggle with loneliness, addictions, burnout, and emotional emptiness. There is a reason why the saying rich people also cry exists in every culture. Material comfort does not fix inner wounds. If a person carries a deep hole inside, no amount of money can fill it. Peace comes from inner wholeness, not external possessions. When accomplishments feel empty, there are people who achieve a lot from career success to financial stability and yet feel no joy. Why? Because the inner child was never healed. Because deep inside they still believe no matter what I do, it's never enough, others still have more, others still live better. This emotional wound makes accomplishments invisible. Nothing feels like success, everything feels small, and envy becomes constant, not because life is bad, but because the inner lens distorts everything. Happiness isn't a number, it's a state. Real fulfillment doesn't come from a car, a house, a title, or a bank account. It comes from inner peace, gratitude for what you have, clarity of who you are, connection with your desires, respect for your boundaries, and the freedom to build a life that fits you. When these inner pillars are strong, envy disappears, because you are no longer comparing, you're choosing, and choosing is freedom. The comparing your position to others is a dead end. Another painful belief is if I'm not in the same place as others my age, I'm behind, I'm worse. This is not true. You are not here to match someone else's timeline. You are here to follow your own path. Comparing destroys joy. It drains your energy. It feeds envy and weakens self-worth. You don't need to match anyone's pace. Your life unfolds exactly in the rhythm that fits your soul. The illusion of equal recognition. Another stereotype says people must value me as much as they value others. But this is unrealistic and unfair to yourself. People value different things. People notice different qualities. People give attention based on their own wounds, their own perceptions, their own priorities. Your worth is not measured by how others treat you. And expecting equal treatment creates disappointment and strengthens envy. Real validation must come from within. My hard work is worthless. Theirs is easy and rewarded. This is a very common wound. A person feels I work so hard and get almost nothing. Others barely try and receive everything. But this belief comes from a painful distortion, the inability to recognize the struggle of others and the inability to value one's own effort. People tend to compare their hardest moments with someone else's highlight reel. But every life has its battles. Every success has its hidden cost. Envy blinds you to the complexity of reality when you refuse to see someone else's effort. An example, the builder who complains I work tirelessly building houses and get little, but that singer jumps on stage for an hour and earns millions. From the outside it looks unfair, but this is an illusion. The singer loses her voice, rehearses for days, travels constantly, endures criticism, faces burnout, performs under pressure, and lives with zero privacy. Every profession has its invisible battles. When someone dismisses another person's effort, they automatically devalue their own effort too. Because respect is a mirror. If I cannot acknowledge another person's labor, I also cannot acknowledge my own. You must honor effort, yours and theirs. When you start truly valuing other people's work, you automatically begin to value your own. It works both ways. Respect is a loop. What you give, you learn to receive. Envy collapses when respect grows. Why diminishing others means diminishing yourself. If you believe that other people's work doesn't deserve fair recognition, your psyche internalizes that same rule. It tells you your work doesn't deserve proper recognition either. And so you live your life in a constant state of undervaluation, feeling unseen, unappreciated, unrewarded. Healing begins with restoring fairness inside your own mind. So when you finally respect yourself, you respect others. Once you begin valuing your own labor, effort, creativity, and emotional investment, it becomes impossible to devalue someone else's because you understand how much strength every human path requires. Envy dissolves in the presence of compassion. See, there is so much more to say. Envy is a deep topic, and there is still much ahead. But before moving further, let's finish the remaining stereotypes that shape this feeling. And then in the next block, we'll shift toward social programming around envy. The stereotype, what others have, I must have too. Another painful belief that silently feeds envy is the idea that if someone else has something, I should also have it. If they can do it, I must be able to do it too. This creates a constant inner pressure, a relentless feeling of falling behind. But every person has a different path, different timing, different responsibilities, different emotional capacity, and different priorities. Life is not symmetrical. Expecting yourself to mirror someone else's results is a form of self-violence. And when reality doesn't match these unrealistic demands, envy becomes the emotional overflow that spills out. This belief prevents a healthy, honest view of your own life and blinds you to your own gifts. The intolerance toward differences. Envy often emerges where a person cannot tolerate differences in skills, results, or life outcomes. It becomes a silent question, why can they do it and I can't? But the real reason, it's rarely about abilities. It's about inner blocks, inner limitations, inner fear, inner insecurity, or simply a different path. Two people can receive the same opportunity and still use it in completely different ways. Talent, preparation, emotional readiness. Motivation and life circumstances are never identical. Learning to accept that paths differ is a major step in dissolving envy. When you compare without analysis, a common reaction is if their result is better, it means I am worse. But the healthy approach would be through what allowed them to achieve this result. What experience do they have that I don't yet? What can I learn? Envy blocks growth. Analysis opens the door to it. Envy says you are worse. Analysis says here is what you can improve. One imprisons you. The other empowers you. Learn from strengths instead of resenting them. When someone does something beautifully, naturally, effortlessly, instead of shrinking inside and thinking they are better than me, you can ask what helps them do it so well. What can I learn from this? What skills can I develop? Where can I practice more? Growth begins the moment comparison turns into curiosity. And curiosity kills envy. To be happy, I must have what others have. Another illusion says happiness comes from matching what others have, but happiness has nothing to do with collecting objects, titles, roles, or status symbols. Happiness is not a checklist, it's a state of being. Some people feel happy with a simple, peaceful life. Others feel happy in movement, challenge, and risk. Some blossom into careers, others blossom in gardens, others in raising children, others in solitude. There is no universal recipe. Trying to copy someone else's life kills your own joy. If I have less, I am worth less. This is one of the deepest wounds. Many people unconsciously believe, my value is measured by what I own or what I achieved, but worth is not a number, not an amount, not a status, not an achievement. Worth is inherent. It is inside you from the day you were born. When you anchor your worth in external comparisons, you lose it each time someone else rises. Your value must come from the truth of who you are, not from a competition you never signed up for. Your life has its own definition of success. For one person, success is a sports car. For another, it's raising healthy, loving children. For someone else, success is living close to nature, growing food, baking bread, or creating art. For some, success is inner peace. For others, it's adventure. You are not required to chase anyone's dream. Your success is the one that feels natural, aligned, and fulfilling for you. The tragedy of living by someone else's template. Envy hits hardest when a person abandons their true path and tries to squeeze themselves into society's template. A template that says, you must want this, you must live like that, you must follow these steps. The more a person forces themselves to meet these expectations, the further they drift from their authentic desires. And the further they drift from themselves, the stronger envy becomes, because deep down the soul knows this is not my life. Real freedom begins when you stop comparing. When you stop forcing yourself to fit into someone else's mold, a huge wave of relief enters your life. You stop running, you stop chasing, you stop competing, you stop pretending. you return to yourself, and your true desires surface, and with them comes a peaceful feeling that dissolves envy at its root. A final reflection before the next part. This first part helped reveal the inner hooks and stereotypes that form envy, what causes it, how it manifests, and what emotional wounds stand behind it. In the next segment, we will move into social programming around envy, how society itself plants and reinforces this emotion. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share my channel. Become a member of my Telegram channel and discuss with like-minded people as a supporting club member.